My name's Doris Wong, and I'm with Smart ERP Solutions. You guys, I did the opening session, and we'll go through today this agenda on employee onboarding best practices. We'll do some intros. I'll talk a little bit about us, and then I'm going to share employee onboarding best practices. We do quite a bit in this area, and just studies we've done, and working with clients, and what's been going on. We'll go through a couple case studies here. I actually very fortunate to have one of our clients who implemented here. So he wasn't on the original agenda, but I dragged him in, and he has to share his story. Okay, so that's Alameda County with Venkatesh here, and then we'll go a couple other high volume scenarios that we've had, and then we'll wrap it up. Since the group is small, I think. Perfect opportunity to make this your session. Don't make it my session. Feel free to ask questions along the way. It might be a good idea for me just to go around, since there's 3 of you that are attendees, to just kind of know who you are, what company you're with, what industry, because one of the interesting things is industry sometimes drive this discussion too. Had another session yesterday, and I have people from different industry: federal, public sector, healthcare, automotive, and their requirements were all very different depending on the industry they're in. So let's start with you, sir, right here in the front.
My name is Bill Shabru. I work for Wise Markets Incorporated, which is a retail grocery chain.
Okay.
Based out of Sunbury, Pennsylvania, which is right smack dab in the middle of nothing.
That's why you couldn't get a direct flight?
That's pretty much it, yeah. I am the HRIS manager. I'm a former learning and development guy who was just lucky enough to have been working on the change management and job aids for our PeopleSoft implementation, and just a little bit more than everybody else. And they said, "Hey, how'd you like to be the application manager?" So I'm not technical and barely functional.
Wow.
I've been in the role for just about 3 years now.
Okay, all right. What's your hiring volume in retail?
Our company is just shy of 20,000 people with a turnover of about, hangs usually about 50%.
Yeah, because of retail, you probably have a lot of hourly, part-time people.
163 retail locations, a corporate office, manufacturing facility, and distribution center as well.
Okay. So I can imagine your industry, because you talk to them. Go.
I'm Gina Rowan from Progressive Insurance out of Cleveland.
I've seen the commercial.
You've seen the commercial? What else do you want? There's about 29,000 employees, exempt, non-exempt, call center, claims reps, so we have people in all 50 states.
Okay.
Turnover's about 8%.
Not bad.
Most of that is
compared to
call
his
center.
50.
Yeah, much better than the 50.
He needs automation. Okay.
And we have a custom, right now we have a custom express hire process, so this will be interesting.
Okay, awesome, awesome.
And I'm Max Harris from Washington State. Work with Lockheed Martin, and our company for the contract we're on right now is Mission Sport Alliance.
Okay,
And
you're with Lockheed, or you're with?
Mission Sport Alliance.
Okay.
And the company is Lockheed, because that's how I explain it. It's just Lockheed.
It's easier for people to know who they are.
Yeah, exactly. Because otherwise they're like, who's that? And it's for the Hanford Nuclear Reservation site, and so we have about 5,000, or we're supporting 5,000 employees. We provide the information systems for employees. And because of the way that the contract worked, when we bought PeopleSoft, way back when, they decided to go with the custom recruiting application instead of Candidate Gateway, so we built a custom recruiting application.
Okay.
And it works well, but it's never going to be as well as PeopleSoft or integrated as PeopleSoft. So right now we're upgrading to 9.2 for the HCM products.
Right.
And we're looking into going other Candidate Gateway. And we actually built ESS as well and Candidate.
Wow.
So,
and you're upgrading to 9.2.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So I'm making a case.
Maybe you get rid of all those customizations and lower your total cost of ownership, huh?
But the people that built those custom applications still work there, so they're kind of
very protective
yes.
of their applications. Yes. I know, I've been there, done that. So, okay. So thank you for those intros, and we'll go ahead and talk about employee onboarding, best practices as kind of our next discussion. I had introduced us, I think on the first night, but we're based in Pleasanton, California. I started with PeopleSoft back in 1995, so there's my 20 plus years. And then I had 10 years of business applications prior to that. So I've got over 30 years working with it, including running all of PeopleSoft inside of Oracle. So no surprise, I continue to do what I'm passionate about, which is working with PeopleSoft clients, and we do traditional software upgrades, implementation, but where we differentiate ourselves is truly in this area here, and that's where we're going to be talking about this today. Add-on solutions within PeopleSoft, whether it's 9.2, 9.1, or whatever release you're on, to help automate, simplify, streamline some of the business processes that are still being challenged by PeopleSoft customers. I don't have too many IT folks in here, but I will just say this very quickly for you. Just think of our add-on, this is about our add-on, as a configurable add-on, leveraging everything about your PeopleSoft. So it's inside of your PeopleSoft in the case of your onboarding or yours or offboarding. We're right inside of PeopleSoft, reading your security, reading your data, processing that, updating it directly. So that's the beauty of it. Everything the People tools support, we support as well. So that's kind of nice. It's not an external system where you need to do some support and maintenance around it. What I'm going to do is just go through some best practices around why, automating your employee onboarding and why having a good program is important. But all of our studies are at the bottom, but there is a study out there that said that the average normal attrition is 22.7% within organizations, and that within the first year of attrition, with good onboarding best practices, you can bring that down to 4%. Now, I can't help you 50%, but maybe I can help you with the automation and make that less painful for all the people that need to process that, because in your case, you're onboarding and you're offboarding them. So it's not just hiring, but it's off and then back on again. So, but a good onboarding practice, this is kind of the study, 22%, which is almost 1 out of every 4 hires, down to 4%. So all HRs, of course, want to have as low of an attrition rate and retain your employees. Now, looking at this here, one of the things is, new hires often feel some of these feelings here: anxious, regretful, overwhelmed, annoyed. You don't want your new hires come into your organization feeling like that. You want them to come in feeling like this side here, to be very secured, welcome, excited, important, comfortable. The other day I was talking about the millennial workforce, and believe me, these are all going to be things that are very important to them. The other thing is that, you want to have a good onboarding process, best practices, so your organization is recognized as a place I want to work. So when you say Lockheed, I want to say, yes, I want to work at Lockheed, but I would also say, I've heard a lot of things about Lockheed too, that maybe I don't want to work there, right? So again, as a candidate, you want to have, we want to all work for Google because they've got food that they serve every day, and they have parties and they have beer bus and whatever it may be. Maybe that's not the real truth once you're inside, but again, that reputation comes into play. So with social media, especially like Twitter and Facebook and the different Snapchat for that matter, here are some real tweets that we had gathered out there of people on their first day of work, and it just kind of gives you an idea of what new hires are saying within organizations. So here's one tweet that said, well, here's ready to start my first day back in the workforce and my boss is late, right? Thank God for my old trusty iPhone to entertain me. Hey, we found this out there. Just go out there and search for tweets, and we found that tweet. Compared to this tweet here, which is really just an all-around great first day at my new gig with 3M. I'm excited to see how this all turns out. So again, the impression of your new hire has a direct correlation to your onboarding process and best practices, as well as retention, and attrition rates, right? So, and I know in your retail business, I used to be in retail, and I didn't last there very long either, right? I was in college, did my part-time job, pay my way through that semester, and then moved on. So I think at the end of the day, if you're all HR, you know turnover is costly. And you know, this study out there says that everything from recruiting a replacement, compensation that you need to pay to a departing employee, the time you invest in training and getting them up to speed on their jobs, the time your managers invest in the team and those people, and any lost productivity could be anywhere from 50 to 150% of your annual salary. That's money that basically goes out the door, and then you're going to start that process over again. So I know whenever I hire people, I want to spend my time making sure I've got the right candidate, and I hope they stay within the organization, because you want to, it takes a ramp-up time, 3 months, 6 months, and then you want them to be productive. So what drives turnover in the study? You know, there is a poor onboarding process as part of it, poor relationship with the manager, inadequate candidate pool. On the left there, hiring problems with the problems with your hiring process, you know, like, wow, that was painful to get that offer or to get that interview. They said they were going to send me an offer, and it's been 5 weeks and I still haven't got it. We hear that one all the time, right? So those are key things. And then the role is not as expected, which is all part of that recruiting part. But, you know, at the end of the day, it's all about building relationships, a good one, and connecting with your new hires. So this drives turnover, and I'll talk about some best practices now around this. So, you know, many organizations, you know, especially when we talk about automating their onboarding process, there is a horizon to a good onboarding best practices. So we make a distinction between orientation versus onboarding, because they are different, okay? A lot of organizations look at just getting those employees onboarded. Get them in, get the paperwork done, get them in on their first day, and then they're done. That is called orientation. Get them in, get them started, and that's it. But onboarding, a good onboarding practice is really getting them in, getting all that, but continuing that employee process around them, such that a good onboarding practice takes about anywhere from 6 months to a year, okay? So those are some of the difference depending on whether organizations are trying to invest in doing that. So this is pretty much what I just said here. If you take a look at this timeline, that's about 12 months. You know, they accept the offer, they come in on their first day, and somewhere by the end of the first month, orientation is done. Whether it's training, whether it's benefits, whether it's getting all their documentation done. They do complete forms, review their policies, and limited training. But a good onboarding practice really wants to take it to this level. We want to do those orientation. That orientation could go a little further, but we also want to extend that period out for a good onboarding practice, which is really around 6 to 9 months. So what else do you do in that period? You could focus on learning and development, because you said you were learning and development before. We all know that if you're developing your employees, that they're going to be better employees if you're giving them the proper training. So continuing to do that. Continuing to get them really part of your culture. So culture, socialization, and having managers and buddy systems in place for ongoing mentoring, and also good processes around performance management in terms of setting objectives, meeting with their managers on a regular basis, and giving them feedback, whether it's on a quarterly basis over that year period as well. Now those are all great onboarding strategies, and if you take a look at it, this would be the difference here, which is really, if you look at the strategic side of it, that first part at the top there is really your strategic onboarding, your timeline to do that, or your tactical, which is really called orientation. And a lot of organizations, I'll be very honest with you, a lot of HR organizations, CHROs, are looking to do strategic onboarding. It's all about retaining your employees and about making that experience as positive and getting that second tweet, not the first tweet. However, the reality that we see is most are focused on orientation, okay? The majority we see is that, and maybe it's because they need to do phase one first. Get the orientation and then build on it, which you can perfectly do as well too. So if you take a look at this slide here, this kind of gives you some of the key onboarding activities, and you could see even between these two studies right here, at the top of the list is the mundane effort of filling in forms. Okay, you get some management involvement, and then you see all the good employee onboarding best practices more down here. But this is probably your orientation part up here. This is more your strategic onboarding. So team building, plan a lunch, a buddy system, mentor programs. They didn't have training on here, although I think training needed to be on this one. Performance reviews, 30, 60, 90 days, surveys. Didn't have survey on here, but maybe that all falls under others, but those are also good strategies around a good employee onboarding process. So just another quick look at looking at this, you know, if you take a look at prior to first day until they're completed, forms completion. This is typical of what occurs with an employee onboarding process, whether it's a paper process, a manual process, or even some automated. New hire data, payroll, benefits, and company specific. And they could do it via these processes, and these are the objectives that they try to get with an automated solution. Just get it in the system, get it accurate, get some compliance in place, have an audit trail. But you keep wanting to take that onboarding practice and move it on beyond day one. And that's where you really start to bring those better best practices in, team building, networking, mentoring buddies, all of those other things we talked about. And then starting to build things like bonds with your peers, learning, understanding, and really focusing on retention. Then you could get your provisioning and all that in there to automate it. So email, computer, that makes your new hire feel pretty good if they come in and it's all there waiting for them, right? Last thing would just come in and go, oh, we need to go order your computer. We'll have to escort you for the first week because we need to get your badge. So getting all of this done prior to first day can be automated as well to drive productivity and satisfaction. And then those longer term things, 6 to 12 months out, you know, really focusing on performance goals and training and development and ongoing feedback for those new hires, right? So that's really the key thing there. To get them more productive, clearly define expectations, and making them feel like they're more part of the organization and feeling good about their job. So just some other research, 25% of the working population experience career transitions every year. That's the 1 out of every 4. 85% of new hires decide within the first 6 months whether they will stay with an employer or not. We've seen studies that actually said it's even earlier than that. They will decide within the first month whether they like the environment or not. Half of all senior people coming in fail within 18 months of their new position. So I hate to be a C-level person going into an organization and failing at 18 months, you know, but that's 1 out of every 2. And then we talked about the cost of replacing a salary employee. This study here also shows a 6 to 9 months of that average salary. And, you know, this is again where you take an onboarding process and really focus on bringing your culture, your business value, and all those other things into your process as well. Look at this comment here. A new hire's first 24 hours are critical to their retention. Really the tweets. That first day, you're sitting there either feeling good or not. Second day, they'll decide, wow, I liked my first day, or I didn't, I hated it. So there's your first 24 hours. And then really where organizations are trying to go is move from just an orientation, bringing them in to go through the process, to more that ongoing employee development, good positive onboarding process. Okay? So now I've kind of went through some best practice. I'm going to show you a little bit on what we've done with some automation around it, and then Venkatesh will come up and talk about this a little. This is the classic case of automating onboarding, because a lot of organizations today still put all the paper in there. Let me ask, is that how you do it today?
We actually have a homegrown portal.
Okay.
That the vast majority of our associates, the ones out in the stores, utilize, where data, it's all data entry into the screens, but then an entire paper new hire pack has come out, and the individual spends half their life signing their name and date.
Okay.
So it's, and then that migrates over to our PeopleSoft system.
And then is it manually keyed in when it goes over there?
No, it's automated, but our issue is trying to get from the ATS to the portal. Our people,
Yeah.
90% of our people don't have access to PeopleSoft
Okay.
at this point.
Okay.
So we're trying to find a bridge between the ATS straddling both the portal system and PeopleSoft.
Okay. Well, definitely, I'll try to touch on some of those points when I go through some of the process. Are you guys paper-based, or you said you have something already,
Yeah,
right?
we're online.
Pardon me?
We do it all online.
Okay.
And then we use the I-9, PeopleSoft I-9.
Okay, you use people, so you do self-service for the I-9? Okay. And what release are you on, 9.2?
9.2.
Okay, awesome, okay. And
We have our own custom thing.
that's right, you have your custom that's disconnected from, okay.
And so with all those forms, it just be PDFs and Adobe Pro. And
So you get, they fill it in via PDF and then they print it off and sign to it? Like,
No, I just do electronic signature.
They do electronic signature, but somebody still has to take that and key it all in.
Yeah.
All right. Common scenario. Okay, so, that looks like our I-9 form. Look at that form. I like how they highlighted all the yellows, right? I wonder if they give every employee it all highlighted already, so they know which field to enter. There's a W-4, there's their direct deposit, etc. So let me talk about what we've done with our clients. So what we've done is we've taken that process. We basically have the concept that you could do orientation, as I discussed, or you could do strategic onboarding. It's up to you how you want to use that implementation to do it. Some people do phase 1 is just orientation, and then phase 2 might be more the strategic, and they add the performance reviews and stuff like that to it. We also have the concept of a pre-board. And the concept of a pre-boarding basically means that I applied, you offered me a job, I don't start till October 1st. You don't have me in your PeopleSoft system yet. But can you get that paper packet that you have them doing? Both your cases, you have that paper packet. I'm not sure where your forms are. They're all done inside of PeopleSoft. Is that correct? So you need an EMPO-ID in your case? Okay, so you're not a pre-boarding. These two are pre-boarding outside. But we can have the concept, because not everybody wants to wait till they have an EMPO-ID, because they did not show up. So they go ahead and start the pre-boarding period. But the concept is, you start off by getting an email into their personal email at home. They can read it in their pajamas and fuzzy bunny slippers or whatever, but they can go ahead and start the process from there. And this here is just a sample. The message is typically your message. Welcome aboard. Take a look at that. And everything you see here is going to be PeopleSoft. So even though it may not look like PeopleSoft, it's all working inside tightly seamlessly integrated with PeopleSoft. So what we see here is a login. So in the case where you don't have an EMPO-ID, we have a way to get them in without that EMPO-ID to do the pre-boarding if you wanted to do that. Because what's not inside of PeopleSoft are all your specific policies or things that are unique to your organization that PeopleSoft just doesn't support. So we want to be able to get all those types of documents into the process. So this concept here is, we either leverage your EMPO-ID in your login process and authentication process, or if you don't have one yet, we can give that candidate the opportunity to have one, authenticate them, and they go in and do all of their paperwork electronically and be able to move in. The next place that they go to is what we call a home page. And the home page is like real estate for you to brand and personalize whatever you want regarding your organization, your welcome message, and all the different types of things that you want. This is an example of the Census Department of Census and Census Bureau, who's getting ready to do the 2020 census, and believe me, for their hiring volume of 700,000 people that they will be hiring in a 6-month period during the decennial, they need automation, because in the 2010, they hired over, 700,000, almost 1 million people with paper packets and people running paper from one location to another across the entire United States in all these little tiny places that they needed to hire people. So they said 2020, we're not doing that. We are gonna go automated. So they are really making that shift to change their onboarding process from that paper process to an electronic process where they can have the person come in and onboard themselves through the system as I'm walking you through it. Now this here is the automated process. So think about taking your packet and organizing it. This is all inside of PeopleSoft. So everything from your specific policies to your W-4, your I-9, all of that type of activity is going to be organized as a process for you to present to your new hire, because this process is also part of that warm, fuzzy feeling you want your new hire to have. They want to come in and be able to do it, say, that was quick, I finished it in 20 minutes. And when they're done, you're done too. No paper being passed, it's all there. You review it, press a button, it automatically updates HR. So this here is an electronic disclosure. Everything is date time stamped. Everything is organized and controlled to what your requirements are that you need the new hire to do. So we don't predefine it, although we see 60–70% pretty identical. Everybody has a direct deposit, veteran status, disability, employee information, I-9, W-4, state tax forms, benefits. And then everything else after that is whatever they may have. We've never seen it before, but it's specific to their organization. They're handing it to their employees today, whether it's a PDF they give them or whether they give them paper. But the idea is to take that, organize it into sections like this up here, and put controls in. This one, as an example, is electronic disclosure. All those locks, you cannot get to those until you agree to the electronic disclosure. Otherwise, it shuts you down. But once this was done, we got our date time stamp, it opened up the next step, which was the welcome letter. So you can define your business rules on how they could do it. We've had people open it all up and just let them go and do it. But rule one is to get that electronic disclosure. We get that, you can open it up and do whatever you like to do. So that's an example of taking that process, whether it's something you want them to do in the pre-boarding period, whether it's something you want them to do during the orientation process, 30 days after, 60 days, 9 months out, a year. This is time. It can be time to wherever you want to present that. So the what, the where, and the why, and the when can all be defined as part of the process. So bring it all online, PDFs, paper forms, whatever it is, bring it online and present it. They're at home in their living room doing this. They're gonna fill it in. We're gonna have an audit trail for everything that they do. Auditors come in, you're covered. Go to the system, you'll have a date time stamp on when they sign that disclosure, and we control through forms and task management the what, where, when, and why. Okay? And then at the end of this part right here, the zip file, because this was one of the things that came up in one of my other sessions. These documents that are signed, they're at home on their own laptop doing it. We can also produce a zip file of all of the documents signed with the electronic signature in one file that they keep on their home computer. You also have all of these in your system as well. So nobody needs to print off. It's all electronic in the system, okay? So that's very key to get rid of that whole process as well, too. So we talked about the audit trail and the task management. You could see in this one here, this example, that everything has been checked for the welcome. And here's a good example of everything opened up. So they can come in and do policies, payroll, and taxes, but we put an artificial control there to say, you can't do benefits until day one occurs, or something like that. Make up a business rule. So all this has to be done before that opens. So again, those business rules are incorporated into the process. Here's a good example of the W-4. we collect the information once. Doris Wong, Social Security, get my address, validate it all, and after that, we never need to ask again those pertinent pieces of information. I'm sure your system today, you guys have done, will do that. We'll automatically populate everything in. The only thing we ask for is this part and question 3. Question 3, 5, and 6. We'll put in the electronic signature. They can print it off at home. Don't print, just save a copy of it to your computer. Remember, it's a PDF. So when they're done, you have it as well. And when you approve later that this hire came aboard, did their employment eligibility, everything looks good, you will press a button and this information will automatically update your PeopleSoft payroll with that. So nobody needs to go key this 4400 single for Helen Matthew into the system. So that's, again, another level of automation as part of that. And then you can incorporate all of your self-identification, whether it's veterans, disability, work opportunity credit, tax credit. Anybody do that? The WOTC 8850? We've automated that. I had one client say that, oh my gosh, we saved so much money because they were paper-based before, they lost it with their third party, they couldn't have any tracking on it, and it's now all automated. Everybody fills it in, whether they're eligible or not, and then only those that are eligible moves forward. So we automate all that. And then if you're doing background as well, you can go ahead and do background check, collect the profile information, and then we can integrate with third-party background vendors as well. Okay, so that's that. And then policies. So this here, we do see in every onboarding example that there are documents, there are policies, there are tasks that are unique to the organization. Obviously, this was one for a manufacturing company, goods manufacturing practices. And so this is what they have their employees go and read and sign. We present it. PeopleSoft isn't going to know about this, but we incorporate that all as one process for that new hire coming in. So we can take any of your policies and bring them online and include that electronic signature at the bottom. And then, you know, this is a good example of specific job, what I call job-specific compliance. The system has the capability of, and this is all inside of PeopleSoft, of reading your data about that candidate or about that employee. And if you have different business rules based off of criteria, what I call criteria, maybe it's a position, maybe it's a location, maybe it's the store you're in, maybe it's the industry or whatever the type of effort you're building, whatever that may be, could be the product line of your portfolios, whatever that may be, you can have different business rules configured in based off of that. So in his case, he can tell you he's got X number of departments and they all believe that they're different. So that means that if I hire into department 1, then I'm going to get this. Otherwise, if I go into this department, I'm going to get a different thing. So if I work in California versus work in Vermont, I'm going to see 2 different state tax forms. So that type of stuff is automated for you such that the right thing is presented based off the profile of the individual. And there's the whole concept of not only are we automating the experience of your new hire coming in, but we're also automating what I call the specific roles within your organization. So that could be your HR person, could be the person that's processing benefits, could be the person that's processing payroll, could be the person that's doing learning and getting them into training classes or setting up facilities for their email, their office, and all of that. So all those things are possible, as well as integrating to Department of Homeland Security for employment eligibility, e-verification. So we can also do that on the back end as well to automate that and make that as seamless as possible. So if you go back and take a look at it, right, all of this stuff I just went through, you know, it's very easy for us to have a step in there for them to meet their buddy or to direct them to a buddy and have their buddy respond to them and be able to have them do something, or sign up for a mentor program, or show them all the clubs that they can participate in and sign up. That could be clubs, activities, culture, whatever you want in that top part of the bar, and be able to do that. Okay? And this is very important, trying to get 30, 60, 90 day performance objectives, because that makes that, especially millennials, a very soft, touchy-feely, right? My daughter, you gotta sit down with her and go through it, and we gotta talk about it. So, you know, having those types of experiences up front for them will make them feel like they're more part of that organization and a great place to work. So, what I'm gonna do now is going to some cases. I'm gonna let my friend here, this is Venkatesh, and Venkatesh is with the County of Alameda. He's gonna share his story, and we're gonna see what you guys have done. And feel free to ask him questions, because they have automated their county.
Good afternoon, all. I'm from Alameda County. It's a county in California.
Do you want the mic on? Can you hear him back there? Yes?
Yes.
Okay.
So we are a county in California, and one of Smart ERP's satisfied customers.
I didn't make you say that.
So here is the map of our county. If you are not familiar, it's on the other side of the bridge from San Francisco. And just some background about our county. It was established in 1853 and one of the most populous counties in California, around 1.6 million residents, and very ethnically diverse. Silicon Valley is right next door, so it's extremely diverse Bay Area region. And then Oakland is where the main office is for the county. And then we have about 9,500 employees, including the temp employees during the election time. And our annual budget is a little bit less than $3 billion. And what do we do at the county? We have PeopleSoft. We just went to we are on 9.2, and both HR and financials, and I manage both the systems. And we went live with 8.5.5 on Monday for HR, and I was here on Tuesday. So that kind of tells you either it was very badly done and I was trying to skip town, or it was extremely successful and I could come here. So you make the choice. It was extremely successful, absolutely no issues. And 3 months before that, we had gone on financials, 8.5.5. It was extremely successful. And one other kudo for ourselves is it's completely done in-house. So we managed it really well. That kind of tells you how mature our team is, how mature our system is. And now we come to our processes. Systems can only help you if you have a good process. When we started looking at, once we did our PeopleSoft, came to the level of we don't have to worry about support, we don't have to worry about getting the latest and greatest. That was all taken care of. The next challenge was, okay, let's look at the processes. Hiring process was extremely manual, a lot of forms to be filled out. Like Doris was saying, we have around 24 departments. Each department thinks they have their own specific needs, their own specific set of forms, and theirs is the best way of doing it, so everybody else should change. So what complicates that is to get a prospective employee, get all the information, and then make a job record in PeopleSoft. It was extremely manual process. And when we started the project, we started looking, let's get forms from each of the departments. They gave a stack of this big each department, and we compiled it and gave it to Doris. She was walking around
150 forms.
154 forms with this big of a binder. Extremely complicated. Everybody has pretty much the same. I need, for example, parking space. It's the same parking space, it's the same process, but everybody had a different form. And everybody had to, considering it's a government entity, everybody had to sign off saying that, oh, okay, the time entry is done in PeopleSoft, but I had to sign off saying, I'm okay to enter the time in PeopleSoft online. And that had 12 different kinds of forms. So I'm just giving you examples to say how complicated it was to make this process automated. So after all that done, all that many forms and fighting which one, first the biggest fight was we have to have a wet signature. We cannot have electronic signature. From that we landed on this page, which is the home page for the onboarding folks. So they could sit anywhere based on the email, click on the email link, they come to this page. You want to greet whichever way you want. This is totally customized for our needs. We have a video on our county talking about some of the same things I talked about. And then here is the starting page for them. They will go and enter their information, upload their direct deposit copy of the check, direct deposit bank information, any of the information that they want to input. Only once, do the electronic signature step by step. They don't have to do it at one single sitting. They can do it whenever they have time, save it, come back, and complete the process. And one thing I missed to say was here,
volume, yeah,
you see the statistics of this. We have gone live last March. This March, and this was one of the biggest projects for us. We did it along with the 9.2 upgrade, HRMS upgrade. Soon after that, we took this project on, and it was very successful, and we have been using it today. The users, 6 of the users are here today. Everybody is happy how it is working, and then you can see our hiring volume is approximately 1,300 per year. Not big, but it is big considering it's a government agency. The big chunk of that is temporary employees. And then we sent out 710 invitations to 710 different people. In other words, we didn't have to print out, offer letters, mail it, and all of that. It was just emails. And then out of the 710, as of yesterday, 586 people have already been have a job record in PeopleSoft, and the rest of the people are still in the process of filling out the information. And the good thing is you can get these stats anytime you need, and then you know where it is, and the HR can make a determination of whatever 180, 200 people that they are still in the pipeline and they are still in the process. So this process has been very effective, absolutely no forms, 100% automated. And the beauty of it is if you decide to add a form, add a process, any of those, you can include that very easily. And since we implemented, we have added 3 forms.
You have?
Yeah.
Without calling me? Wow, that's good.
Yeah.
And the one thing I should mention that he didn't mention, when he completed these 586, the equivalent of taking that paper packet and keying it into PeopleSoft, it's automatic. So no HR people need to go in there and key that in and go create the employee ID and the personal record and go into payroll and do the direct deposit and put the W-4 and the state taxes. It's automatic because we've already collected it. We collected it in the pre-boarding. Now you're probably asking me, how'd you do that? Because we collected them in the pre-boarding as an applicant or as an identifier with our solution. So Venkatesh might have come in a pre-boarding period as 1, 2, 3. But when HR says, ready to go, hire Venkatesh, they push a button, it will take all the information of 1, 2, 3, get the next employee ID, 4, 5, 6, and then create all of that information with that next employee ID, 4, 5, 6, and transfer all that data in. So the key thing there is that you reduce out all of the data entry errors, that somebody fat fingering, the time it takes for them to do it. They don't need to do it if it's all correct in the system from either the new hire putting it in or HR reviewing it, you're good to go. It'll automatically update that for you. And I will tell you on direct deposit, those direct deposit information is very, very accurate because who's putting it in? The new hire's putting it in. And they will make sure that the account numbers are correct
Correct.
and it's been confirmed properly. So there's no fat fingering going on there, otherwise they won't get paid. But yeah, this 586 for him is fully automated.
Absolutely.
And all it requires is that you have core HR.
Core HR, yeah. Now, if you have payroll and you want the direct deposit to go into payroll, you have to have payroll, right? But if all you needed was employee information, then yes, core HR.
So you wouldn't have to have candidate gateway at all.
No, you don't have to have candidate gateway in this
This is
one.
what it is.
We just need to know who are you hiring that's going into PeopleSoft, and we can start it right there. We do have clients that have candidate gateway and feed from TAM candidate gateway. So if you look at it, it's a total PeopleSoft solution. Or we've had people have a different ATS system. So if you have a different ATS, you're gonna get down to knowing you're gonna hire Venkatesh, right? And you're gonna give him his packet, just put it in and create the invitation. On our side, it's called an invitation. Send that email out. We know his profile is California, we know his job is IT, and it will look at it, what's the packet he needs, and then go ahead and present it automatically. Nobody needs to think about that. Okay? Anything else for Venkatesh? True story, he went live, he added 8 forms, and I didn't know about it. I need to talk to you.
Yeah.
Well,
Thank you.
it's good news, because what that means is our clients can go ahead and maintain the system themselves and create their own forms. We did some training for them, and he's been saying, I haven't been calling him back, but, he's been out there building his own stuff. So that's the true story of the County of Alameda. And this is their branding. Everybody brands their own branding. It's all part of your culture. If you look at it, they added this video, which a lot of our clients do. How many of you guys know about Green Mountain Coffee before? Have you heard of them on the East Coast? Well, theirs was all green. It was that nice kind of green mountain. They had green mountains and everything on it. But they were big into culture too, because they were hiring a lot. And they had videos and, all of that in theirs as well. So it's an opportunity for you to really brand it and make that employee feel very welcome. And this is the first thing they see when they come in. Okay? So I thought I'd share with you, part of what we had was also kind of like, volumes. His was about 1,300. So, if you did 586 already, you're tracking way more than your 1,300 hires in a year. I talked about the Census Department that we're working with them on onboarding to totally change their paradigm to 1 million, anywhere from 700 to 1 million hires in that short period for the decennial. That volume is totally, you have turnover, but you're not that volume either, So that's like the extreme. And we did a session yesterday to talk about infrastructure to support that, but that's their high volume story. I thought I shared this here. This is one of our clients that have also been very paper-based. Everything they were doing was paper-based. And if you take a look at their hiring volume that they're doing, they're a staffing company, which means they're hiring contractors continuously all day long for Macy's, 100 salespeople, for FedEx, 1,000 drivers, right? So whatever that model may be, they were totally paper-based before for their hiring volume. They said they were hiring about 450,000 a year, okay, every year, and they were paper-based as well. But this are some stats they gave me right before I put this together. At the beginning of the year, they went live with a very similar solution for all of their paper that they were doing. They went live around last June, about a year ago, but at the beginning of the year, they were around 27,000 people that they did in that month, which was all automated. And then if you take a look at these last two, they're up there about 35,000 in a month. So I know you got small, we got huge on the census side, and these are like some in the middle. But their volume is about 5,000 to 7,000 to 8,000 per week. So can you imagine people getting 8,000 folders back and manually keying in 8,000 folders? So they went ahead and automated. It took them forever because just like he shared, they had 4 or 5 different companies and they all believed they were different. So we had to work them into a common process that they all agreed on, because you can't automate when everything's all over the place, right? So they did that, and these are some of the things that they came back with. There are some realized benefits and some planned benefits. They had gone through and did, as part of their ROI, some of this planned benefits, meaning that they knew every hire that they did for that 35,000 people, they FedEx out a package to them. And they had costed it at $15 a packet. So for every hire they did, they overnighted out for 15, because their hiring was immediate. They found a person, they wanted them to start tomorrow or as soon as possible. So that helped them save a lot there. The other area, they probably put Office Max and Office Depot. They were ordering paper, and they no longer need paper. So they ordered paper, but their PO sizes were significantly different, such that 6 months later, Office Depot called them and said, am I doing something wrong? Because you're not buying as much paper from me. And that's because of automation. Can you imagine 35,000 in a month, and having that much paper, even if it's 60 pages per all of their packet, that's a lot of paper. They became more innovative in the market. They are a big WOTC tax credit, and so they have this now all automated stats. They know exactly where they stand. And then as a result of automation as well, data information was validated and accurate going into the system, and complete. Because in a paper packet, they could send it back to you and be incomplete. So then they spend another overnight out telling them it wasn't correct. So they send it back out. So they were able to cut that down, and as a result, their W-2s were significantly cut the first time. And if you take a look at their site on realized benefits, time savings, they went from 20 minutes to at most 5 minutes per hire going in. That was what they were. Fastest for them was 20 minutes to key everything into the system. They're down to 5 minutes. They're not really keying too much in. They're just reviewing. And over time, they don't need to review, because they know the system's going to ensure that the W-4, the I-9, those will all be completely filled in properly. Otherwise, they wouldn't get to the end of their process. So they went from 20 minutes to 5 minutes. They were able to eliminate dual entry and enhance their hosting integrity. They're big on compliance, meaning that for all their clients, they need to make sure certain forms are filled in for client A or client B or client C. They used to manually review all of that to make sure it was all there for that 35,000 in a month. I don't need to do that anymore. The system will say client 1 requires these 3 forms, client 2 requires these. It's all automated. They just play a random review, and all of a sudden their function truly changed. And then I think the other thing is that they store all of their documents. And so they have a document management, and they just take that zip file and check it into their OnBase, and no filing, no scanning, none of that was necessary anymore. That was reduced from their work as well. So I kind of went through Alameda County, their size. I call them, I thought they were large until I met the Census Department, so I don't think anybody will ever replace that size and volume. But, doesn't matter if you're small, medium, lot of turnover, because that same process can automate your offboarding in your case. Because I'm sure when you offboard, you have certain things you have them do as well. So the same concept would come into play. And then these were just some of their comments here, I'll just pick a few. It's so quick and easy, and populates HR without any double entry or repetitive keystroke. These are some of the things that their people who are used to processing all those people are saying creates a real uniformity with the naming of documents in the archives, right? All new employees are very satisfied with using the solution on the user end, meaning that they were doing surveys of their contractors as well, and they were saying, fab, I did it at midnight, I was done in 20 minutes, and it was an easy experience for them. So again, it contributes to that best practice around that first impression about company. Okay? You guys will leave that up there if you want to take a look at that for a few seconds. I'm going to make make sure that I save a few minutes for questions, and I am not gonna prevent you from going to the next session if you're still here. But again, going back to this here, why onboarding, good practices? Well, I think you can see from the 3 scenarios that we talked about, cut recruiting costs, definitely, you can see that. Get that employee up to speed. Get a lot of it done in the pre-boarding period. Now, I will tell you in retail, you will say, Doris, I gotta pay him. Okay? You might, but in high tech, they just do it and they're done with it, right? So it depends on the industry you're in, but speed, time to productivity. Get them in on that first day, not about filling in paper, but take them to lunch. Talk about training or whatever, some fun things for them to do. Focus on that retention, that good experience. Improve data quality. No fat fingering, no duplicate effort, no incomplete forms, inaccurate data. It's also secure. Your admins are much more productive. Your employees are more engaged. Enforce compliance. I-9, W-4s, work and live in 2 different states. You need 2 tax forms. Do people remember that, or the system enforce it for you, and it will enforce it for you. Make sure they're filling in all of their disability, or filling in their benefits, because you need to do that. You can do that. And then, of course, we want employees to drive their performance, being happy and being able to do that. So that's us. There's my contact, and we'll post this out there. I'll open it up for questions.
How would this work for a employee that transfers to another state? Does it handle that? So it's not a new hire.
Right, so that's a different HR transaction. So the process, you want to set up your process based off of the type of transaction. In my scenario here, I was focused on a hire or a rehire into an organization. In yours that you're talking about, it's a quasi-hire, right? Because they're transferring out of one, they're really terminating out of one and into another. So that would be set up as a different process. You could use the same tool, but do a transfer from one department to the other. And then you would configure it into that, like let's say the receiving department requires you, let's say they're transferring to a CFO's office. So they might need to sign a whole bunch of additional confidentiality agreements, right? So maybe as part of that transfer, they get presented 5 additional agreements. And so you could automate that. Or today you might be giving it to them when they transfer to that department to sign it. So the same concept goes in, but you want to automate it. So you could take a termination, a separation transaction, and off-board, right? So the idea is what is that process and what is it that you need to automate? Once you get that automated, somebody will review it. When they review and press the button, that's when the automatic updates occur. And your documents are created. So in my case, the 5 documents could go into a zip file that's associated with that employee into OnBase or wherever your documents are. So yeah, we do see transfers, we see hires, rehires, transfers, because it's kind of a, sometimes people say there's nothing there that needs to be done. Sometimes a transfer, they make them go through a rehire. So it just depends, again, on your business rules within your organization. We were at a state, and I don't know if that's how you guys do it as well at the county, but we did automate a full state, like across the entire state, and they, in a transfer, wanted to treat, because they actually go to like from one department to another department. It's almost like it sounds like little companies within the state. They actually wanted that terminated from here and hired into here. So they want them to go through a hire process. So it just depends. So I said, you have them do an I-9 again and all that? And they go, yep, we want them to do it all again. Okay.
Yeah, we don't go that far.
Yeah.
But there are certain things that need to be done again, like, especially if you move to a state like California. So
Fill in a California form.
Yeah, or New York.
Or you moved.
Right.
Yeah, you moved and you crossed the borderline, now you need to fill in a second form. Yeah.
So we can handle that.
Yep, you just have to know what you want to automate and then configure in those business rules.
Does it have forms built right in, so it would know I'm now in New York?
Yeah, so what it does is it starts with who you're hiring. So if you're hiring me and I you're the recruiter, and you set me up to say, okay, I've decided, so he was talking about ATS being outside. ATS being outside, you know your candidate. You gotta have some information about your candidate. So my address is in New York. So it's gonna look at that New York and say, you're New York, you live in New York, your home address is New York. Oh, by the way, this office that's running this is in, and I don't know the East Coast that well, but let's say New Jersey. Aren't those two pretty close, right? So maybe New Jersey and New York, it'll know you're working in New Jersey, living in New York. We have logic already in there to look at those two, and then if you need to fill in 2 forms, it will present you both forms. You work and live in California, you get 1 California form. But California is an at-will state. So you have to present new hires in California an at-will agreement. But if you work in California, you'll get it. If you work in Vermont, where it's not an at-will state, you won't see it. So that's that whole criteria based off of the profile of the individual. You want to keep that in mind when you're trying to automate that onboarding. It's either that or you only automate the commonality piece, which might be 65%. Then you go back to, you know, the 35% for all the others, but that means somebody has to think about that. So you want to try to automate as much of those flows as possible. Okay? Any questions?
No.
You're going to go build it back there?
No.
Take it home and build it? Any questions, sir or ma'am? No? Okay. All right. Well, maybe we can help you with your revolving door.
Well, actually, for retail, 50% is low. 75% is on average for retail growth, so that's the lowest the industry average.
That's good.
But, our issue is trying to get beyond our internal hurdles, which are on the all these costs.